Hey guys, welcome back to another great game of CEDH. Today we have an epic game from MagicCon Vegas, and man, did it lead to one of the coolest stack battles I've had in quite some time. Also, speaking of events, I'll be at Command Fest Worcester this coming weekend. I'll have a spot in the command zone recording sweet games of CEDH all weekend long. So if you want to be in one of my videos, come hit me up. Also, there'll be a lot of cool events firing that weekend, so be sure to attend. But starting us off this week, we have Adriel from the Cardboard Cookout on Rog Thras. This deck has really taken off with the realization that Gaia's Cradle is a pretty nifty card. And with the printing of Valley Flood Caller, Displacer Kitten, and the newly unearthed Aboro Breeze Caller lines, this is a super sweet deck to pilot. Next up we have Evan, probably better known as Freedom Waffle, from MTG Basics, on his signature Kinnan list. And what can I say that people don't already know? Kinnan makes way too much mana, lets you sit back on activations for big dumb boys, and has the ever-looming threat of just combo killing the table. In the third spot, we have Hidden on Kotis. This is a Sultai Voltron strategy, aiming for a mix of pump spells and equipment to gain card advantage from stealing your opponent's best spells off the top. And bringing up the rear, we have the other half of the Cardboard Cookout with JJ on Tymna Malcolm. This is Esper Turbo, looking to go fast and then rely on both of their commanders to accrue value. Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board.
Adriel starts off the game with an Urza Saga, tapping the land for an expedition map, and then ends his turn with his commander Edhrec. Evan has a Verdant Catacombs, which he cracks for a tropical island, tapping the land for a Delighted Halfling, and then following that up with a Chromox, imprinting a Sink into Stupor. Hidden plays out a Wooded Foothills, cracking the land for a Trop as well, casting a Mockingbird, which will enter as a copy of the Halfling. JJ also has an Urza Saga, but passes it there. Adriel has a Verdant Catacombs, cracking the fetch for the third Trop of the table. He then exiles an Elvish Spirit Guide for a green, which helps cast an Invasion of Ikoria, where X equals 0. He finds a Dryad Arbor and passes it there. Evan plays and cracks a Wooded Foothills for a basic forest, tapping 2 for his commander Kinnan, which resolves. He can then tap for 4 as he casts an uncounterable One Ring, gaining protection and tapping the ring to draw 1. Hidden plays and cracks a Bloodstained Mire for an Underground Sea, ending his turn with a Mystic Remora.
That's unironically better than the ring.
Oh man.
Do I have
Hey,
any game
that
action?
one's counterable! Get him! Get him!
I'm good. Yeah, ignore me.
Yeah!
I'm done after that.
Alright, that's ignore the Kinnan with
Remember,
like,
I'm not the threat.
yeah, sure.
JJ has a Bloodstained Mire as land, cracking the fetch for a Scrubland, tapping 2 for a Talisman of Progress. Hidden will draw off the fish, but JJ is done after that. Adriel draws for turn and triggers his Saga. He'll float a mana and go searching. He finds a Candelabra and then plays out a Gaia's Cradle as land return, with him then casting his other commander Thrasios, ending his turn untapping his Trop with his Candelabra. Evan untaps, takes 1 off his ring, and then taps it to draw 2. He has a basic island and then casts an Enduring Vitality. He'll tap his Chromox for 2 blue and uses 1 of it on a Mana Vault. Hidden will draw off the fish as Evan then slams down an uncounterable Nezahal. Hidden untaps and pays for fish. A command tower then comes out as land as Hidden then casts a Wild Growth on his Underground Sea. He gives a card to Evan but passes it there. JJ draws her turn and upticks his Saga. He'll also float a mana as he searches out a Soul Ring. A Verdant Catacombs then comes out as land as he cracks the fetch, bolting himself as he finds an untapped Watery Grave into a Rhystic Study. Hidden and Evan will both draw as JJ then ends his turn with his commander Malcolm, and Adriel at end step Thrasios. He bottoms the card and reveals a Chromox. Adriel has a basic island and just passes it there. Evan untaps, takes 2 off his ring, and then another off his tap vault. He then taps the ring to draw 3, and then plays out a command tower as land for turn. He then heads to combat and sends his Vigilance Enduring Vitality at JJ. There are no blocks, as Evan then on his second main casts a Fairy Mastermind. Adriel will respond by thrasiosing as he tops the card and reveals a Displacer Kitten. JJ will draw off the Rhystic as the fairy resolves. Evan then casts a Mox Amber. Hidden will draw off the fish, but JJ declines his Rhystic. A Fellwar Stone then comes out as JJ decides to draw off the Rhystic, triggering the fairy to draw Evan a card, with Hidden then drawing off the fish, and Evan drawing another card off the fairy. But still not done yet, Evan casts a Copy Artifact. Hidden and JJ both draw as the copy enters as a Soul Ring, as Evan then ends his turn with an Elvish Mystic, giving one more card to JJ. Hidden untaps and pays for fish. He has a Shifting Woodlands and casts a Soul Ring of his own. Evan and JJ will both draw. Hidden then casts a Manifold Key, letting Evan draw off the Nezahal. JJ will draw off the Rhystic and gives another card to Evan, with Hidden then untapping his Soul Ring.
It's free, it just gave everyone a few cards.
Thank you for your contribution.
Yep.
Thank you for your service.
Hidden then ends his turn with a Wishclaw Talisman. Evan draws and Hidden pays for the Rhystic. JJ has an Arid Mesa's land return and cracks a fetch for a Tundra. JJ then casts his own Fairy Mastermind and then follows it up with his other commander Tymna. He'll head to combat and sends Malcolm at Adriel, who doesn't have any responses as he takes 2. JJ will make a treasure and on his second main pay a life to draw off Tymna. This triggers Evan's fairy to draw him a card. JJ then casts a Chromox, triggering Nez and the fish, to which Hidden draws. Evan draws, and then JJ gets a card off his own fairy, with JJ then imprinting a Mystical Tutor on the Chromox. He passes the turn, with Adriel at end step using his Candelabra to untap his Cradle, letting him Thrasios once again. He keeps the card on top and reveals a Mox Opal, with JJ having to discard 2 lands due to hand size. Adriel has a Talon Gates as land for turn and tries to phase out Nezahal, to which Evan flashes in a Hullbreaker Horror. Unfortunately, there is no Mindbreak Trap as the Horror resolves. However, Evan is not done yet as he continues to respond by casting a Chord of Calling where X equals 3, also putting a Hullbreaker trigger to bounce JJ's Rhystic Study. Both he and Hidden will draw as the Rhystic is bounced. But with a little table talk, it looks like it will need to be JJ to respond, as he then casts a Dispel, triggering Nezahal and the fish, with Hidden drawing. This then puts 2 fairy triggers on the stack, as both JJ and Evan draw, with Evan then drawing off the Nezahal, which puts another fairy trigger on the stack. But responding to this one, Evan casts a Mental Misstep on the Dispel. Evan then targets the fish with his Hullbreaker trigger, and Hidden then draws off the fish. However, before the fish is bounced, he attempts a Swan Song on the cord. Evan draws off Nezahal, and then fires off a Veil of Summer, putting the Horror trigger to bounce Thrasios. Hidden will then draw off the fish, but is out of answers, as Adriel then activates Thrasios, bottoming a card and revealing a Mystic Remora. With this being Adriel's second draw, it triggers both fairies once again. Thrasios is bounced as JJ then casts a Mental Misstep, targeting the Veil. Hidden and Evan both draw, as Evan then casts an Into the Floodmaw to bounce the Tymna, with the Hullbreaker bouncing Hidden's Swan Song. Hidden will then draw off his fish, and JJ then casts an Into the Floodmaw of his own to try and bounce the Hullbreaker back to hand. Hidden and Evan both then draw, and unfortunately with all the cards we've given, Evan is still able to respond with the Misdirection, pitching a Mirror Maid and targeting the Floodmaw, with the Hullbreaker Horror to bounce JJ's Malcolm. Hidden will draw off the Mystic as Adriel then Pact of Negations the original chord. Hidden and Evan then both draw, and the stack eventually starts to resolve, as the Pact counters the chord. Malcolm is then bounced, and the Misdirection swerves the bounce onto Hidden's Delighted Halfling. Swansong is then bounced to hand, Evan's Into the Floodmaw bounces Tymna, the Mental counters the Veil, Hidden's Fish is then bounced, Evan's Misstep then counters the Dispel, JJ then finally gets his fairy trigger, and lastly, Nezahal phases out from the Talon Gates. And man, was that a battle. Adriel then uses his Candelabra to untap his Cradle and for 4, cast the revealed Displacer Kinnan. To which Evan slams down a Mindbreak trap, also using the Horror's trigger to bounce the Kinnan off the stack as well. The cat is bounced, the Mindbreak fizzles, and Adriel then ends his turn with a Mox Opal into his revealed Mystic Remora. Evan then untaps and takes 3 from his ring, and 1 from his tap vault. He'll then play and crack a Scalding Tarn for an untapped Breeding Pool. He then casts a Finhorn Elf and uses the Horror to bounce the Mystic Remora. Evan then taps his ring to draw 4, and with the Mystic gone, he's left to go crazy, as he casts a Nyxbloom Ancient and is able to start the loop of bouncing his own mana rocks with the Hullbreaker to generate infinite mana, infinite Kinnan activations, and eventually Thrasios, to let him get a Finale of Devastation to take the whole table out, winning him the game.
Game review. Man, that was one hell of a stack battle. And while I had assumed the game was over the second Kinnan managed to stick that Nezahal, I'm pretty happy the table was able to put up some sort of resistance. Granted, I'm not sure if it ended up mattering in the end, but we did have the other option of not taking those extra draws and feeding more cards to Evan. However, my thought process is the table having more resources was probably better than just letting him go unimpeded. And also looking back, I think we should have had that table talk before letting JJ's Ristic get bounced, as unfortunately I wasn't able to draw any more free interaction. Granted, I'm not sure if it really would have mattered in the end, but this was a great way to start off Vegas, and I'm so happy I was able to play with both Adriel and JJ from the Commander Cookout, and Evan from MTG Basics. There was so much I unfortunately had to cut out, but this was a blast of a game. Thanks to everyone that joined for the game, and before everyone leaves, I want to thank our special Patreon members, Slyfox and Holy Septic, for the support of the channel, along with all of our other Patreon supporters as well. And remember, never give up, even if you're dead on board. I'll see you guys later.